All right, so we're going to do a very easy screen replacement. We just pulled the screens out. I'm going to keep the framing, but just replace the screen. In order to do so, you need to replace the screen and the spline that holds the screen in place. You're going to need a screening tool, very inexpensive, $4 or so at one of the big box stores. You'll need an X-Acto knife, and I find that a pair of scissors handy also helps. The spline that you need will be determined on the gap that you're using. Most screens will use a very small piece of spline, and it comes in a nice long roll, and the whole thing, the roll of screening and the spline, all about $15. None of this is expensive, and it is fairly easy to do. You just have to do it a couple times to get more proficient. So the first thing you need to do is pull out the old spline and the old screen. So find where they just started it, which is here on this particular example. You pull out, you reach in there and grab the old spline, and then you can literally just peel it back. Just peel it off. Typically, especially if it's been exposed for a while, it's kind of old and brittle. It may break in your hands. If it's newer and more pliant, you may need to use a pair of pliers, but that just depends on what your situation is. Okay, cut. Okay, once the spline is out, then you just need to remove the old screen. Again, it's probably pretty brittle, and that's why you're replacing it to begin with, and you just need to work your way around peeling it out. I have found that working on a table allows a little more comfort in doing so, but I've also put down a towel, as you can see, to help keep the table surface from getting marred and dirty. So once you have the screen out and your spline out, you're ready to apply your new one. So all you need is, hold on one second, I'll be right in the frame again. There we go. Your new screen. I typically will cut just a couple inches larger than the actual screen I'm replacing. Depends on how much you're trying to do. But this way I have extra room to make a mistake if I did pull too tight on one side. But by allowing myself at least a 2-inch overlap all the way around, then I know I'm in good shape. So you lay your screen flat across your framing, take your spline, take your tool, and start in one corner and just give it a little. The tool will have a flat edge like this, and you just need to get it started. So you just start your spline in that little gap where you just created, and then you can run your tool down the gap line, which pushes the screening into that hole and makes it a little bit easier to get the spline started. It does require a little bit of pressure, so I am going to stand up to get some pressure on it. You just set the wheel on it and roll your way across, keeping this spline tight as you go. Now, I'm not too worried about trying to get the screen itself tight across the whole thing yet. That'll be on the last couple of sides. The first side, I just want to get it started. Just get it in and get it holding in place. Just like that. And just simply turn and continue down this side. You have a little corner here that you're going to need to work yourself around. And so you just get yourself the back end of your tool, punch it down in there without cutting the screen, just do it softly, and push the spline into the corner. Now, a lot of these screens have these tabs that help you hold the screen in place or pull the screen into place. That makes it a little tricky on getting the spline because that is a lot smaller of an area. But again, it's not that difficult. Just take your time, roll with your tool into those holes all the way across. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the flat end and push down a little bit tighter at the base of those tabs. You may or may not have the tabs. Now for an example, this whole process, I was able to do 7 screens, relatively this size and a couple that were slightly larger, all for less than $50 and about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of labor. So if you are just mildly handy, this is something you can do. I'm going to do this other side. Now that I'm on the opposite side of something that I've already put in, I'm actually going to give it a little bit of a tug to pull the screen fairly tight. Now when I push the spline in, it will continue to tighten the screen. And again, just roll your tool up the side. Like that. And then you got a little corner here where you just came across, use the flat end again, push the spline into the corner, and now we're on to our last side. Now once you start your last slide, you can go ahead and cut your spline at the length you're going to need. You will find that it expands slightly as you push it down. So you will need to trim it again here in just a moment. Again, this is the last side, so we're going to make sure we have it fairly taut. Start our corner. And once again, work our way across. I'm going to cut for a second. So once you get it all the way across again, you see I've got a little bit of extra spline down here. I'm just going to trim that so that it doesn't overlap, and then push it all back into place. Now that I've gone all the way around, you can go all the way around again with your tool to make sure your spline's in nice and tight. The only step we have left is to trim off all this excess, and that's where your X-Acto knife comes in handy. And the best way I have found to do it is to just start at one of the corners, cut myself a nice little edge like that so that I can hold it tight, and then I use the frame to hold the X-Acto knife into place, or to give myself a nice clean cut. Now I'm not a professional by any stretch, but some of these projects are fairly easy to do in-house. And you just work your way all the way around doing this same process. Go ahead and cut. So I'm on the last line here, the last corner. You can see this whole project probably took, for this one screen, took me maybe 10 minutes, if that, probably less. And then we're done. You're still going to want to come back, and you see this little extra here, you're going to want to come back and trim that off if you see something like that. And it's just simply using your X-Acto knife and pulling it clean. Still have a little corner here on the spline that I want to push down. These are just final checks that you're going to want to do. And with that, we have, for a very low cost, rescreened a screen. The key to doing small window screens with small framing is not a real heavyweight screen. If you use too heavyweight of a screen, it will tend to try to pull the framing together. So make sure you're using just enough of a screen that you need. I particularly use a pretty small version of, and it works absolutely fine. This will last 10 years, probably, before you need to rescreen. And there you go. Thank you for watching.